Right now, in 2026, modern performance cars are basically iPhones on wheels. They have traction control, launch control, stability management, and algorithms doing the driving for you. But back in the golden era of American muscle, there was no computer to save you. It was just you, a massive iron block V8, raw fuel, and a terrifying amount of mechanical brutality. When people think of General Motors in the late 60s and 70s, they always talk about the Chevelle SS, the GTO, or the Camaro. But GM had a dark side. Some of their wildest, most violently powerful creations were completely overshadowed, quietly suppressed by corporate suits, or entirely erased from mainstream car history. In this video, we are counting down 10 of GM's most brutal, forgotten muscle cars. One of these was a sleeper that outran Corvettes. Another was so controversial, GM executives literally destroyed the tooling to kill it. And wait until you see number one, a car so insanely powerful it quietly humiliated Chrysler's legendary Hemi, yet most people today don't even know it exists. Let's get into it. Number 10, the 1970 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454. Picture this, it's 1970. You want a luxury car, but you also want to completely vaporize the tires at a red light. Enter the Monte Carlo SS 454. Chevrolet marketed the Monte Carlo as a gentleman's cruiser and had a massive 6-foot-long hood, fake wood grain on the dash, and rode like a cloud. But under that massive hood, Chevy sneakily dropped in the LS5 454 cubic inch big block V8. We're talking 360 horsepower and a tectonic 500 pound-feet of torque. This thing was a heavyweight brawler in a tuxedo. You could sit in air-conditioned comfort floating on heavy-duty suspension while ripping massive burnouts that would leave Mustangs choking in white smoke.
1970 Chevelle SS 454 stole all the glory. The Chevelle was the poster child for Chevy muscle, leaving the luxurious Monte Carlo SS to quietly fade into the background. Most guys today don't even realize an SS version of the first-gen Monte Carlo ever existed. Number 9. The 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass W31. Think big blocks are the only way to go fast? The engineers at Oldsmobile completely disagreed. In 1969, Oldsmobile unleashed the W31 package for the Cutlass. Instead of a massive 455, they took their 350 cubic inch small block V8 and tuned it to the absolute ragged edge. Oldsmobile rated it at 325 horsepower, but that was a blatant corporate lie to keep insurance companies happy. This engine had a camshaft so incredibly aggressive that it couldn't even generate enough engine vacuum to operate power brakes. That's right. To buy this car, you were forced to order manual brakes. GM essentially made you sweat to stop it. It idled like a pro-stock drag car and revved to the moon, effortlessly outrunning much larger engines. But it was completely overshadowed by its big brother, the legendary 442 W30. The W31 was Oldsmobile's high-revving secret assassin, quietly terrorizing the streets while the 442 took all the magazine covers. Hold up, though. If you think a radical small block is cool, you haven't seen anything yet. In just a few minutes, we're going to reveal a corporate loophole that shattered GM's internal rules. But first, let's look at a car killed by a mysterious accident. Number 8. The 1977 Pontiac Can-Am. By 1977, the muscle car era was supposed to be dead. Smog regulations and the EPA had choked American V8s to death. But nobody told Pontiac. The Pontiac Can-Am was a massive, aggressive, aerodynamic beast powered by the legendary W72 400 cubic inch V8. On paper, it only made 200 net horsepower, but out on the street, the massive low-end torque made it one of the fastest and most brutal cars you could buy in the late Malaise era. It featured a dramatic shaker hood scoop and a wild Trimac ducktail spoiler. Pontiac sent the cars to an independent company called Motortown to have the spoilers installed, but after only about 1,375 cars were built, the mold for the spoiler mysteriously broke. Instead of fixing it, GM Corporate instantly canceled the entire Can-Am project. Why? because the Can-Am was dangerously close to stealing sales from Pontiac's own highly profitable Grand Prix. It was an internal assassination, leaving the Can-Am as a forgotten one-year-only ghost. Number 7. The 1971 GMC Sprint SP454. Everyone knows the Chevelle El Camino, but what if I told you there was an evil, virtually unknown twin wearing a different badge? In 1971, GMC introduced the Sprint. It was exactly the same as an El Camino, right down to the bolt holes, and just like Chevelle, GMC offered a high-performance package called the SP454. Under the hood sat the LS5 455 V8, pushing 365 horsepower. This wasn't a sleek sports car. This was a utilitarian farm truck that could run 14-second quarter miles straight off the showroom floor. It had massive big block torque and almost zero weight over the rear wheels, making it an absolute nightmare to hook up, but incredibly fun to slide around. But GMC was a commercial truck brand. Nobody walked into a GMC dealership in 1971 looking for a pavement-shredding muscle car. Only a tiny handful of SP454s were ever built, making it one of the rarest GM big blocks in history. Number 6. The 1969 Chevelle Biscayne L72 427. Now we strip away all the luxury. No AC, no radio, no sound deadening. Just raw, unfiltered mechanical violence. The 1969 Chevelle Biscayne was a fleet vehicle. It was the car you bought if you were a traveling salesman or if the city was buying taxicabs. It came with plain steel wheels and cheap dog dish hubcaps, but a few absolute lunatics realized you could check the box for the L72 427 V8. We're talking 425 conservative horsepower, massive square port cylinder heads, solid lifter camshaft. The Biscayne was lighter than an Impala, completely stripped of extra weight. When a Mustang or a GTO pulled up next to what looked like a boring grandpa sedan, they would get absolutely decimated by a screaming 427 big block. It was the ultimate sleeper, and because it was just a cheap fleet car, most of them were driven into the ground, sent to the scrapyard, and erased from memory. We are entering the top 5. You've seen the sleepers, the trucks, and the luxury brutes. But what if I told you GM straight up lied to the U.S. government just to keep muscle cars alive? Keep watching.
Number 5. The 1974 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SD455. It's 1974. The oil crisis is in full swing. Muscle cars are practically illegal. Yet somehow Pontiac engineers sneaked a literal race engine out the back door. The Super Duty 455 was a marvel of defiance. It featured reinforced engine blocks, forged rods, and high-flow cylinder heads. It was rated at 290 net horsepower, but anyone who drove one knew it was secretly pushing well past 370. So how did Pontiac get this gas-guzzling monster past the EPA? They cheated. Pontiac engineers installed a secret solenoid that disabled the emissions equipment after the engine ran for 50 seconds. Just long enough to pass the government test. When the EPA found out, they hit the roof. Pontiac was forced to heavily detune the engine halfway through production, and the Super Duty was killed off entirely after 1974. Today, it stands as Pontiac's final glorious middle finger to the death of the muscle car era. Number 4. The 1968 Oldsmobile Hurst/Olds. Corporate politics ruined a lot of great cars. In the late 60s, General Motors had a strict, absolute ban. No intermediate-sized car was allowed to have an engine larger than 400 cubic inches. Oldsmobile desperately wanted to drop their massive 455 cubic inch V8 into the Cutlass to beat the GTO, but GM executives said no, so Oldsmobile found a loophole. They partnered with George Hurst, the legendary shifter manufacturer. Olds claimed that the cars were being shipped to Hurst without engines and that Hurst was dropping the 455s into the cars. It was a total lie. Oldsmobile installed the massive 455s right on their own assembly line, then quietly shipped them to Hurst for cosmetic upgrades. The result? 390 horsepower and a staggering 500 pound-feet of torque. This car was brutal because it shattered the corporate limit. It was a high-class gentleman's brawler that bent the rules of the biggest car company on earth. Only 515 were built, and they remain one of the sneakiest acts of rebellion in automotive history. We're down to the final 3, and if you think a corporate loophole is crazy, wait until you see the absolute widowmaker sitting at number 2. But first, let's look at the car Pontiac built to destroy its own flagship. Number 3. The 1971 T37 455 HO. By 1971, insurance companies were targeting muscle cars. If you owned a GTO, your insurance premiums were absolutely astronomical. The nameplate itself was a red flag. So Pontiac did the unthinkable. They cannibalized themselves. They took their cheapest, lightest, most bare-bones economy coupe, the T37, and offered it with the top-tier 455 high-output V8. The T37 weighed significantly less than a fully loaded GTO, but possessed the exact same 335 net horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. Because it lacked the GTO badges, the insurance companies treated it like a regular commuter car. This car was affectionately known as the GTO Killer. Pontiac intentionally built a cheaper, faster sleeper that annihilated their own legendary GTO on the drag strip. The T37 455 HO was a brilliant, subversive masterpiece that nobody talks about today because it looked just like your aunt's grocery getter. Number 2. The 1969 Chevrolet COPO Nova 427. Most people have heard of the COPO Camaro, but there was a much darker, much more dangerous COPO vehicle built in 1969. Legendary tuners Don Yenko and Dick Harrell used the central office production order system to order the tiny, lightweight Chevy Nova with the monstrous L72 427 big block. That meant 425 horsepower in a compact car that was never meant to handle that much twist. The COPO Nova was a literal death trap. It was insanely nose-heavy. The tires couldn't handle the power, the chassis twisted under the torque, and the drum brakes were completely useless. It had the most terrifying power-to-weight ratio of almost anything on the street. Only 37 of these L72 COPO Novas were ever built. Most of them were instantly converted into dedicated drag cars, and the rest were violently wrapped around telephone poles by inexperienced drivers. It was simply too much engine for too little car, earning a dark reputation before disappearing into the history books. And now, number 1, a car so terrifyingly powerful it made Chrysler's legendary Hemi look slow. Most experts today completely ignore it because of the badge on the grille. Number 1. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. When you think of the ultimate, undisputed king of the muscle car era, you probably think of the 426 Hemi Cuda or the Chevelle LS6. You do not think of Buick. Buick was the doctor's car, the dentist's cruiser. But in 1970, Buick engineers threw away the rulebook, stripped off their lab coats, and built an absolute monster, the GSX Stage 1. Under the hood was a unique 455 cubic inch V8. Buick purposely underrated the horsepower at 360, but everyone knew it was pushing well over 400. But horsepower wasn't the point. The Stage 1 produced 510 pound-feet of torque. Let me repeat that, 510 pound-feet. It held the record for the highest torque output of any American production car in history, a record that wasn't broken until the Dodge Viper arrived decades later. In a legendary Motor Trend test, the GSX Stage 1 ran a blistering 13.38-second quarter-mile right off the showroom floor, officially dethroning the 426 Hemi as the fastest muscle car in America. But because it wore a Buick badge, it was quickly forgotten. While Dodge and Chevy were marketing their cars with loud, cartoonish aggression, Buick quietly let the performance do the talking. The GSX Stage 1 remains the ultimate heavy-hitting giant slayer of the muscle car golden age, utterly overlooked by modern car culture. Raw, unadulterated, and violently fast, these 10 machines prove that General Motors had a serious dark side when it came to American horsepower. No computers, no driving assists, just you holding on to the steering wheel for dear life. Which of these brutal forgotten muscle cars surprised you the most? Did you even know GMC built a 14-second farm truck or that Buick held the torque record for decades? Drop a comment below and let me know which one you would take for a spin.
If you love deep dives into the golden era of automotive history, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous cars are the ones nobody remembers. See you in the next one.